Here's your smart fact of the day. Recently, about 50% of the US workers said that they would rather resign than be forced back to office full time now that offices are asking people to come back to work. And in this episode of Smarter With Sid, what we are trying to figure out is what will the way ahead be? What would individual employees think like? And what would and should employers do towards this standoff? Let's go. A little bit of context for this particular episode of mine. Before I start off, let me say that I think whether people should go back to work or not is a very complicated and complex situation, which has been forced into acceleration by the pandemic. I mean, there were movements of working from home and, some days from office and the rest of it even before the pandemic, but the pandemic accelerated it, and both employers and employees got a taste of what it is like to be working from home. I think this was the initial context, and I guess behaviorally, if you're going to do something over a period of time like a year or 2 years, it is going to have an impact on your life and the way in which you work. Now, the negatives at that point in time, what we had talked of was there is a blur between work and life. Older people, which means the senior people, were having a problem on two fronts. Some older people were saying that work from home just makes me lose control over the team that I have. So there was a problem of control. The second was there are a lot of senior people who were saying, I'm enjoying this because I don't see myself spending my life in transit and, just wasting half my life away in office, being non-productive, and rather work from home. So senior people were divided like that. People who were younger and who were more junior were divided again. There were people who were, especially in India, people who were from smaller towns who were avoiding the payment of extra rent and, the whole cost of transportation. And so they enjoyed the work from home situation. But there were some younger people who actually liked the socializing aspect of working from office. So actually, the context is mixed right from the get-go. Both younger and older people, there seem to be two cohorts: people who want to work from home, people who don't want to work from home. It's leadership, it is middle management, it is junior management, and executives as well. The line seems to be about 50%, 56%, if I'm not mistaken. So what should the situation be like? What should we be doing? And the fact is that there is no single answer to it. If you look at some of the notable people who have resigned, there's a guy from Apple who recently resigned, sort of a senior guy. And because he's senior, obviously he is going to be talked about in the media. There are people like Elon Musk who are saying, and this is not Apple, pretend to work somewhere else and get basically back to office. And this was quite a strong stance that he took on Twitter just a couple of days ago. So you have those kind of people, but then you have companies like Airbnb who announced that it's never going back to office, and their site, their career site, raked in more than 800,000 visits earlier this month. So there's a bit of a force there. Even if you look at Spotify says it doesn't matter where you work from, we're going to pay you New York salaries. So there's a big difference in the way in which different companies are looking at the same problem. Now, I would say that people are going to behave the way in which their founder's span of control and the imagined understanding around the span of control is going to be like. So there is a factor over there, certainly. The second factor is that people have reevaluated their priorities. I mean, earlier people were saying, hey, I'm willing to take a pay cut, or I'm willing to, take a lesser position if I'm going to work from home. But I don't think that's flying. In fact, a lot of people are just looking at, okay, how soon can I get a job somewhere else? So if I'm going to get a job somewhere else very quickly, and if I want to work from home, I'm going to take a stronger stance. So it's become very transactional in that sense. Now, this doesn't portend well at all for companies who are trying to get everybody back to office. Clearly, there must be data talking about people who do goof off or people who are not really being productive or something having impacted, their plans, or maybe they've just invested. Companies may have invested so much in real estate and their entire structures and systems to be played around for work from work rather than work from home. It just becomes a bit of an issue. Now, when I look at all of these factors and the way ahead, whether you're younger or whether you're older, and if you don't want to be transactional about it, it's not like, okay, how soon can I get a job? I think there are two deeper issues that we need to consider. Issue number one is the re-evaluation of life itself and how you want to spend it. So earlier, the goals were all around money, power, prestige, and your ranking in, within the organization and outside the organization, which is pretty much dominant. Now, and this is, I would call it in a very loose, stereotypical way, the US way of thinking. Not that I think that the US way of thinking is restricted to the US, but it's individualistic, and it is something that has a tribal element, but the showing off to the tribe is the more the biggest motivation here. But essentially it was around these goals, and now suddenly those goals have changed because people taking a step back, maybe having lost a dear one in the family, or maybe having seen how close they can get to their kids, or maybe having seen how much free time they have to pursue their hobbies, actually understanding how much time they're wasting. All of those have become inputs for them to decide on their future goals and career. So we are going to see this recalibration from employees who have understood it. There are some people who have missed it, and the people who have missed it are the ones who actually function better in a group, who actually miss the camaraderie at work. And I think that they're taking the decision from that situation. So that's that issue, which is a double-sided issue. The issue number two is essentially around tribal behavior, and does tribal behavior translate itself into remote working? So what I mean by this is, when you go to a place of work, earlier the behavior was, okay, you go to a place of work, you feel a sense of belonging, you feel the sense of empathy, you understand that you're working together. There might be office politics, but essentially you kind of feel that you're part of a bigger thing than what you are when you're working individually. Now, can you feel the same way if you're working from home? And I'm sure that you can't. And therein lies the tension. The tension is the feeling of not wanting to waste my life versus the feeling of actually, becoming bigger than yourself because you're part of a group. Now, each company has to probably take stock of how, not just what their current employees are saying, but also how their future employees and their brand is going to be perceived in the marketplace, and what their future employees would think about them. And when you look at future employees, you're looking at the ideal kind of people who will join company XYZ. The bigger brands, Apple and Tesla and everybody, they might be a little impervious to it because they've got the brand name, the prestige that's associated. But then you have bigger brands also competing with them, like Google, who say, okay, work from home, or Spotify, or Airbnb. So I don't think that having a big brand name on your resume also counts, especially if you've reevaluated your life. What does the professor say in this? I think we're talking about a knowledge worker problem. Clearly, a waiter in a restaurant obviously has to be a waiter in a restaurant. You cannot think of working from home. So we are talking of knowledge workers, and knowledge workers have a different way in which they can connect with other people in a tribe. I think that the office needs a revamp for knowledge workers in order for both modes to happen. This does involve investment, and that's going to be tough in a situation where there is an inflationary, sort of cloud on the horizon, as well as, situations wherein there is likely to be a recession. But I think that investment that is taken towards this sort of, new future is going to pay back in spades. I hope you like this episode of Smarter with Sid. It's a thorny issue, and I do deal with such thorny issues from time to time, but trying to figure out what you should be doing And I think what you should be doing is actually reevaluating and asking yourself what matters more to you, the wasting of your life or becoming a bigger person. And sometimes, that's the value system that you need to figure yourself out for. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just connecting to where you are in your life. I hope that makes sense. And hey, if you like these kind of podcasts, well, there's many more that IVM's got that you can check out. And if you like this one, well, do like and subscribe to Smarter With Sid. And if you like me, I'm the traveling professor. Do connect with me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. Until next time then.